Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy B, and today we are going to be taking a look at a brand new feature coming out of the Kingdom Builder space between specifically two games, Call of Dragons and Rise of Kingdoms. RoK is going to be introducing pure kingdom merges, where you're taking kingdoms that predominantly are low activity, dead/dying, and doing a pure combination where they're going to take kingdoms, put them together, and then you'll get a brand new kingdom, right? So kind of like force merging players in a sense. And that's what we're going to touch on today and what those implications might look like if such a thing was to get added to Call of Dragons. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us off because it helps out a lot. Thanks. So let's go ahead and read through what these potential implications are and how is the first vanilla release looking for RoK. So in a recent face-to-face with the developers, right, they touched on a number of hot topics. This was released, I believe, 4 or 5 days ago, right? So this was around the 8th or 9th of March. For very first question, right, just starting out hot out of the gate, can you please tell us more about your plans for merging kingdoms? At our Vietnam meetup, we discussed our future plans for consolidating low activity kingdoms. Now, I'm going to read through this. I'm going to give you my thoughts, and then I'm going to share with you what I think, right? And what I have consistently said about what my view is on merging kingdoms and how I'd like to see it done, if it may vary at all from what they're stating. We've received a ton of feedback from the governors, and after analyzing the suggestions we received from our dev team, came up with a preliminary plan. Number 1, special merger stories. Your kingdom will only be eligible for merging if it has completed its first season of Conquest story and has a very low number of active players. So why is this important? Well, what they're basically saying here is that you need to complete Season of Strife, which is their season of Conquest, meaning that you've gone through Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, and Season of Strife. So you've played at least, at minimum, 4 seasons. Then you will be eligible based on the line here. This is something that I can actually agree with, and I've stated this before when I've talked about how to go about doing merges. The reason why is because you need to make sure that once the kingdoms get to what is essentially the main or primary end game / KVK pool of kingdoms, which is Season of Strife, because that's the end game, right? Once you get there, it's almost kind of like, maxing your character in WoW and then more of the game opening up to you, right? As I've been told. In this case, when you're going through Season 1, 2, and 3, you're only with a limited pool of kingdoms for what that next KVK will be. And even though that pool is increasing, you don't get to the main pool of water until you get to Season of Strife or a Season of Conquest if it's RoK. Number 2, or point 2, bullet 2 here. If selected for merging, your kingdom will only have one story it can register for in its next Lost Kingdom, King of the Nile, though this may change. So if you're going to merge, you're basically going to go into a quote-unquote merging KVK storyline. I mean, to be honest, my view on it is I just feel like if you meet a certain minimum, the game should just force it upon you. And then you look at whatever the median average is for kingdom powers in active kingdoms, and you just combine enough kingdoms to put them at whatever the median average is, right? So not too low, not too high. You keep it easy breezy, beautiful cover girl, and simple. That's it. The challenge with something like this is that if your kingdom is low active, assuming that they have a king or queen there, who's to say that they will register, right? When you kind of leave the choice in the player's hands, some people, even though the right decision may be to merge, they may not want to. And so, yeah, this is going to be interesting that they're giving you the option, right? Because it says, if selected for merging, right? And again, I just feel like this should just be forced. Okay. Bullet point number 3. The gameplay of this special merger story will be the same as a regular Season of Conquest story, but at the end of the season, there will be a merger period, currently planned to last for around 5 days. During this time, your kingdom can form a team with other kingdoms participating in a merger story, even if they're in a different lost kingdom. At the end of the merger period, your kingdom and its teammates will be combined into a new kingdom. So this seems pretty standard, right? They're just allowing you to do it at the end of the season. And I imagine maybe because they need you to stay on a similar kingdom timeline that's going to line up with other KVK timelines. And so instead of just doing the merger right away, they want you to do it at the end. Okay. So basically it's okay, you register, you play this story out, you play this KVK season out, and at the end of the season, that's when at those last 5 days saying that, okay, that's when the merger is going to happen. Okay, they're just giving you some details on that. I mean, like I said, I would rather it happen sooner rather than later, but okay, that's the way they're going to try doing it first. Additional notes: merger stories will only open if there are enough eligible kingdoms to form a matchmaking pool. If there are too many eligible kingdoms, more merger stories will open as needed. And again, this is where you get into some of that tricky lingo based on the fact that they say, if selected for merging, right? Now, maybe what they mean is that they will automatically select you, right? However, I'm reading this as the king or queen has to register, right? It says your kingdom will only have one story it can register for. So the way I'm interpreting this is that the king or queen has to. Now, maybe that's not the case. Maybe if your kingdom already meets a certain low requirement or prerequisite, they will auto-register you for that. However, I'm almost thinking that it's more of they're going to let the king or queen choose, even though, like I've said before, I feel like they should just auto-register you. However, this is nice at least to hear that, okay, if there's more kingdoms that are really interested in doing this merging, they will accommodate and open up more stories. Additional point 2, your kingdom can choose to skip a merger. Okay, so see, there we go. We got the confirmation. Your kingdom can choose to skip a merger story, but it will count as failing to sign up for a story. Okay, so does that mean that if you fail to sign up for a story like multiple times, will it eventually force you, if you meet a certain minimum, that would actually put you in eligibility category for doing a merge? Again, this is why I just feel like they just need to make the decision for you, right? Like they just need to come out and say like, look, this is what it is. If you meet, they need to be like, okay, if you're under a certain power, if you're under a certain amount of active players, right, and you're not consistently getting new peeps, along with other things that maybe we'll touch on here at the end, basically showing that you're not growing, but you're stagnating or losing, right, or declining. That's really what we're talking about as having that trend established, that consistency established, that your kingdom just isn't doing anything beyond where it currently is, and you're only losing ground, and you've already met a certain minimum requirement. Then at that point, yeah, you should just be forced into a merger group. Okay, so if the kingdom fails to find a team or a team's active player count is still too low, the system may intervene. Okay, this is nice. So now they're saying that they may just take the action themselves, which again is what they should just do in the first place, right? Don't be given that. This is what I'm talking about, man. Like, just is too many options. Okay. New kingdom naming. Merging kingdoms will have a new kingdom name, number, and name separate from those of its constituent kingdoms. Okay, this makes sense. New kingdom map. Merged kingdoms will have a new map. On this new map, point 1, all holy sites and passes, which in this case to COD would be like behemoths and passes, will be temporarily closed, gradually unlocking as the Kingdom Chronicles progress. All Alliance fortresses, point 2, all Alliance fortresses and Alliance flags, resource centers will be removed. All resources used to build them will be refunded. Okay, this I think is okay. And I say this because we've already seen a variation of this in COD where we saw once home kingdoms were introduced, what happened? Well, the map was reset and you got an accelerated buff to do faster building. It allowed you to get to passes faster, it allowed you to get to behemoths faster, and essentially reconstruct your kingdom, which is also a good opportunity to potentially reorganize, if you will. Now, to me, COD has already set the blueprint up for this as well. Oh, look at that. I didn't realize my notifications happen even when I'm just doing standard recordings when someone new subs. So in that case, shout out. Thank you for the new sub during the record, even though we're not live. But yeah, dope sauce. Shocking that worked. Okay, so we go back, right? And again, I'm fine with that because as I said, COD has already done it. They've laid the foundation for how that would work. So if a merge happens, you'll just reset everything, but then you get accelerated build, right? Now, maybe they don't do the accelerated build, but I would like to believe that if COD did this, they would do an accelerated build, or at least have the option to do something, depending on the timelines that would line up to get this new merged kingdom into the next KVK group or cycle. So this is fine. I think this makes sense. It also allows for the players and the alliances that are getting put into this new merged kingdom to coordinate, to organize, to communicate with one another, to try and figure out what could be a new build plan and working out, right? Now, there's also some downsides there, right? You could essentially have happen what ends up happening in some of the new kingdoms where you could have some civil wars, people fighting over resources, territory distribution, final zone placement, and inclusion, along with a number of other things, right? You could have rogue problems as well. I mean, keep in mind, these are just the realities of it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the merging thing is bad. I do think there's a lot more pros to it than there are cons. Next one, other events. During the merger period, certain kingdom-wide ranking events, e.g. Mightiest Governor, will be paused. Okay. I mean, I don't see why it would if they just line it up with, you know, whatever the other timelines are that are going on. Going for the record. So, yeah, I don't know about that one necessarily. I mean, unless they just want you to do certain events during... Oh, I see. Sorry. They mean during that 5-day merger period. That would make sense. In that case, I don't think there's a problem with it. Merged kingdoms will not be able to sign up for KVK for 2 weeks after merging. Oh, I see. And that's probably because if they say that, maybe they will give you an accelerated build buff and other buffs that just help you to essentially reshape the kingdom structure and also to stabilize, because you don't know how things are going to play out once a merged kingdom happens. So you'll need to see how that short in the interim, how it does develop. I think that actually is a good idea. So they just kind of give you a little in between. Now, this could end up taking longer for you to sign up for KVK. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm 50-50 on it, but I kind of lean a little bit more in that I like that it's kind of a stabilization period is really what I would consider it, that they're giving it to you. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. If it doesn't take that, because you also need time to not only rebuild the kingdom, you need to refigure out your hierarchy. What kind of governing body and system are you going to run there? And then how are you going to prep for KVK? Because you have a bunch of new people. You have to understand, doing a merged kingdom is akin to you all starting over, or you getting that brand new season 1 home kingdom experience of where everyone's kind of figuring things out for the first time. That environment, that psychological state for people, is what you are reintroducing with merges. So I guess I do actually lean a little bit more in favor of this. New events will be launched in merged kingdoms to help them quickly rebuild. Okay, so this goes back to what we were saying. This is something COD did when home kingdoms were introduced, where they gave you the increased build speed and they unlock things a little bit faster on the Augerstone timeline, which I'm forgetting what it's called now in RoK for their thing, for their timeline as kingdom development, but I imagine that's probably what it may be. Lastly, number 5, this face-to-face won't go into how other kingdom assets, e.g. special immigration points and vacation permits and kingdom stats rankings will be handled, Stay tuned for future announcements. Above is our preliminary plan for Kingdom merges. If you have any suggestions, please feel free to share them with us via the survey at the end of this article. So, with all of that being said, I actually think that this is a pretty good rollout for as far as a V1 rollout. The only thing I would say based on everything that we've read so far is they didn't touch on how strong of a kingdom or how many people, what kind of average they're looking to put these kingdoms into place on. So they didn't touch on that. They didn't say how many kingdoms are going to allow to merge together. They didn't say what the player max or cap will be for merging kingdoms together. They didn't say what the power cap will be for merging kingdoms together. The second thing I'll say is that, as I've mentioned before, this should just be something that's forced on you, right? And again, this is if you qualify, if you have played 4 seasons. After your Season of Strife or Season of Conquest season, it would be 4, ideally, all right, because you'd play Season 1, 2, 3, and then that. And then at that point, you would either be eligible or not for being included in the next Kingdom merge cycle, and it would just be forced upon you, right? Again, you're meeting certain requirements, meaning you have to have a certain amount of low activity players, a certain amount of low activity power for the kingdom. You haven't got any new recruits. You're not growing. You're either stagnating or you're declining. And then you meet requirements, right? In kind of the general sense of what I would consider to be kind of main points of interest for becoming eligible to get put into such a merger kingdom pool. So those are the 2 things I would say. Aside from those, I think this is a V1 rollout is pretty good. And do I think that there will probably be some refinement here? I would imagine so. But I do like at least the foundation and the blueprint that they've come up with so far. I think this is pretty good all around. However, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think about this? What do you think about some of the points that I've brought up? Do we agree? Do we disagree? How would you do things differently? Let me know in the comments down below. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, we will catch you later.